They tell you you're too much, too intense, too sensitive, too emotional. But strange enough, they only say this when you reach out. The silence that speaks louder than words. How energy, not logic, moves us. He called it psychic energy, not magic, but the psychological fuel behind every choice, every emotion, every connection. You smiled through the pain, hiding the cracks, because that's how you survived the chaos. But surviving isn't the same as thriving. Jung warned us that the more we cling to the persona, the mask we wear, the further we drift from our true selves, our authentic core. That distance leaves you hollow, invisible, filled with silent frustration, because it's exhausting being loved only for the mask you crafted to protect yourself. So you begin to ask the hard questions. Do they truly love me or just what I provide? If I stop giving, will anyone stay? What if I stop pretending? These questions are scary, but they're also the key to freedom. The moment you ask them, a door opens. Jung believed everyone must walk this path, from hiding behind the persona to embracing genuine authenticity. You start showing up differently, less polished, more vulnerable. You begin saying no, not from selfishness, but from clarity. You stop performing love and start accepting it without conditions. And the world shifts. Some people pull away because they were only invested in your role, not your real self. Others feel uneasy because your honesty shakes their comfortable illusions. But then there are the rare few, the ones who see you not your light, your calm, or your usefulness, but your very being. Those people are precious. They won't let you feel invisible. If you feel unseen, like your soul is buried beneath layers of enoughness, it's not because you're broken. It's because your light was trained to shine only in ways that kept others comfortable. But now, it's time to take off the mask. Your attention, your feelings, your instincts, these are the currency you spend constantly. Here's the catch. Most people don't realize what they're handing out. To risk being real, to remember the people who truly love you don't need you to perform. They see you. They choose you exactly as you are. At first it's subtle. You say no just once. You don't pick up that call. You don't drop everything to help. You protect your time, your energy, your peace. And then the silence. The ones who messaged you daily, gone. The people who needed you desperately, vanished, like smoke. No fights, no explanations, just absence. It's confusing. You wonder, what did I do wrong? You replay that moment you said, I can't right now, searching for the offense. But there wasn't one. You didn't change. You simply stopped sacrificing yourself. And that's when their mask falls off, because some people never showed up for you. Or maybe they came for your service, your availability, your emotional labor, your light. Carl Jung understood this deeply. He taught that the journey to becoming your whole true self, what he called individuation, is about reclaiming your energy, pulling it back from where it's been leaking out, unnoticed. It means no more playing roles, just to be accepted. No more pouring from empty cups to earn affection. No more letting kindness be used as currency for conditional love. When you do this, when you take back your soul from those feeding on your light, something shifts. You stop chasing approval. You stop shrinking yourself to fit others' comfort zones. You begin living for you. You find peace in your own presence. But some do. They see your energy, not your essence. They feel your calm and consume it. They notice your kindness and exploit it. And you attract relationships rooted in truth, respect, and genuine care. It's not easy. It's messy and scary.
But real.
And it's necessary, because the world doesn't need another mask. It needs your raw, beautiful, unfiltered self. So start walking toward that freedom. Step by step. No more hiding. No more pretending. Just you. Finally, fully seen. Finally, truly free. Silent, but it builds inside, like a pressure cooker, about to burst. The kindness you once offered freely becomes a heavy chain, binding you to roles that no longer fit. The more you give without pause, the more you lose yourself in the process. This is the moment where everything shifts. When you finally say no, not with guilt, but with respect for your own limits, you reclaim your power. Saying no isn't rejection, it's self-preservation. It's an act of courage that shakes the foundation of toxic patterns. It's where you start to break the cycle of being drained and invisible. When you stop being everyone's emotional crutch, the ones who only leaned on you for support begin to fade away. Not because you've become harsh or unkind, but because your energy is no longer an endless well to draw from. They pull back, revealing who they really were: temporary fixtures in your life, not permanent souls. And here's the raw truth: that kind of loss stings. It's a kind of heartbreak without drama, a quiet mourning of connections that were one-sided all along. You grieve the illusion of belonging, the illusion of being needed simply for who you are. Jung said this energy isn't endless, it's sacred, finite, precious. Pour it into people who only take, and slowly, quietly, you hollow out. But underneath that grief is a new, deeper kind of peace. This peace isn't loud or flashy. It's a stillness that settles when you stop fighting to be seen through someone else's lens. It's the calm that comes from knowing you're no longer shrinking yourself to fit a mold that never truly held you. This is the rebirth. Jung talked about the journey from fragmented survival to whole self. Individuation means gathering the pieces of yourself you scattered, trying to please, protect, or perform. It means stepping out of the roles that exhausted you and stepping into the raw, imperfect truth of your being. It's a process that demands solitude, yes, because only in silence can you hear your soul's true voice. That voice whispers things you forgot. You are not a tool to be used. You are not a backup plan for those unwilling to face their own struggles. You deserve rest, boundaries, and unconditional love. You deserve to live on your terms, and when you embrace that voice, something beautiful happens. You attract people who respect your limits, honor your pace, and cherish your whole self, not just your usefulness. They don't ask you to sacrifice your well-being to prove your worth. They meet you with open arms, not empty hands. The path isn't easy. At first, saying no feels like betrayal. Betrayal of the dependable friend, the strong partner, the caregiver who never faltered. But each no is a step toward freedom. A step toward being seen as a whole person, not just a function. Not with a bang, but a fading. That's how it starts. They praise your understanding. They lean on you when life weighs heavy. Over time, you realize that constant availability wasn't kindness, it was erasure. You vanished beneath your own generosity, losing your edges, your voice, your essence. Jung warned about this collapse, the soul's fracture caused by relentless repression of true needs. Repression doesn't vanish quietly. It erupts as exhaustion, resentment, or numbness. It's your spirit's way of shouting, enough. The moment you listen, you start to heal. You begin to set sacred boundaries, not walls, but gateways that protect your energy and honor your truth. You stop giving from a place of obligation and start giving from a place of overflow. You redefine love, not as sacrifice, but as balance. And in that balance, you find your authentic self again. So if you're holding on too tight, if your kindness feels like a weight, if you fear saying no, remember this: you don't owe your energy to anyone who doesn't respect it. You don't have to exhaust yourself to be worthy. You are whole, even when you stop giving. And the people meant to stay will love you for all of that. The light, the shadow, and the boundaries that protect both. This is your journey from survival to wholeness, from invisible to seen, from borrowed strength to true power. And it begins with one simple word: no. Your light, just to keep the peace. No more pretending your needs don't matter. This moment is your awakening, your rebellion against the invisible chains that have held you captive for far too long. You realize that bending to please everyone else only leaves you broken at the core. It's not about becoming cold or indifferent. It's about becoming fiercely protective of your own spirit. Because every time you sacrifice your boundaries, you chip away at the foundation of your true self. And that foundation needs to be strong, unshakable, and unapologetically yours. And when they're whole again, they vanish. No explanation, no apology, just silence. As if your value disappears the moment they stop needing you. Jung called this process individuation, the journey back to the self after losing it in a crowd of expectations. It's the slow, sometimes painful peeling away of layers that don't belong to you. Layers of people-pleasing, of silent anger, of hidden tears behind forced smiles. It's reclaiming the parts of yourself you abandoned to survive, the parts you thought weren't worthy of love or acceptance. And here's the paradox: the more you honor your limits, the more you invite genuine connection. When you stop being the ever-available caretaker, something shifts. People either step up and meet you in your truth, or they step away, revealing who truly values you and who just valued your utility. At first, the silence can be deafening. Those who depended on your constant presence might disappear without a word. No confrontation, no explanations, just absence. It's confusing, heartbreaking even, because you wonder if you did something wrong. But here's the thing, you didn't change who you are. You simply stopped sacrificing yourself to fill others' voids. That absence? It's a clearing, a sacred space where your soul can breathe again, where you can reconnect with that quiet voice inside that's been drowned out by years of yes, and I'm fine. That voice that knows what you truly need, what nourishes you, what makes your spirit sing. When you finally listen, you understand that your worth isn't tied to your availability or your ability to carry others' burdens. Your worth is inherent, unchanging, untouchable. You are valuable simply because you are here, not because of what you provide or how much you sacrifice. But you keep giving, you keep showing up, because your heart believes it's love. But love isn't depletion. Love doesn't steal life. This realization brings freedom. Freedom to say no without guilt. Freedom to prioritize your own healing. Freedom to be imperfect, messy, and real. Freedom to show up as yourself, not a mask, not a shadow of what others expect, but your authentic whole self. It's scary at first. Saying no might feel like rejection, like you're letting people down. But in truth, you're showing up with integrity. You're telling yourself and the world that your boundaries matter, that your time, your energy, your peace are sacred. This journey isn't easy. It demands courage to face loneliness, discomfort, and misunderstanding. But it also gifts you with something priceless, a connection to yourself so deep and true that no external validation can shake it. Jung's wisdom reminds us that repression is a slow death of the soul, but individuation, the reclaiming of the self, is the birth of a life lived fully and fiercely. It's the transformation from emotional exhaustion to soulful freedom. So if you've been drowning in the expectations of others, if your kindness feels more like a cage than a gift, know this: your true self is waiting beneath the layers of always available and never enough. And when you find it, when you protect it, when you cherish it, you don't just survive, you thrive. Because you were never meant to be everyone's lifeline. You were meant to be your own. And that is where your power lives. Stop dimming your light to make others comfortable. You become impossible to ignore. No more confusing kindness with self-sacrifice. Love is abundant. This is the invisible war many fight, between giving enough to feel alive and giving so much you forget who you are. Carl Jung saw this moment not as an act of rebellion, but as the birth of true individuation, the journey toward wholeness. And wholeness, it's not about polishing a facade to appear nice. It's about stripping away the masks to reveal your raw, authentic self. That process begins with rebuilding your psychic boundaries, the invisible fences that guard your energy, your peace, your very essence. Jung gave us tools to reclaim these defenses. Think about it. All your life, you've suppressed your anger, your courage to say no, and your rightful assertiveness. Why? Because somewhere along the way, you learned these parts of you were wrong. That being agreeable, selfless, and constantly available was the only way to be loved or accepted. But repression doesn't make these parts vanish. It drives them deep into the shadow, the hidden side of your psyche that holds your strength, your voice, and your untamed truth. Shadow work means diving inward and reclaiming what you pushed away. It's saying, I have the right to take up space. My needs are valid. Anger isn't the enemy, it's a compass. When you start integrating your shadow, you stop being a sponge soaking up everyone's emotions. You become a mirror, reflecting the truth, and mirrors can't be manipulated.
They reveal reality, not compliance. Healing isn't about becoming a new person.
It's remembering who you were before the world demanded you perform. Jung described integration as the harmony between your conscious self and unconscious depths, a merging that stops the exhausting act of shapeshifting to fit in. So how do you protect your light without dimming it? Jung's work shows us the way. First, recognize your energy as your own treasure. Instead, you stand firm, rooted in your center, rather than your wounds. Boundaries aren't just rules you set. They become an unbreakable part of your being. Your presence speaks loud and clear. I no longer abandon myself. People feel that. Some will walk away, and that's okay. Because those who thrive on your chaos can't survive your healing. Most fear solitude, confusing it with loneliness. But solitude is the sacred space of self-communion. It's where you reconnect with your voice, rediscover your true desires, and understand that your worth has never hinged on how much you're needed, but on how whole you feel when no one is watching. Jung called solitude the school of the soul, a place where clarity awakens, energy returns, and your spirit sharpens its edges, not for combat, but for authenticity. You don't need to prove your value by overextending yourself. You only need to protect it fiercely. Pain transforms into power when you own your lessons. Every betrayal, every ghosting, every draining connection wasn't your failure. It was your curriculum. Each time someone took from you without giving back, you learned invaluable truths about your own boundaries, capacity, and neglect. Now, you choose differently. You don't react with anger, you rise. You don't explain yourself, you embody your truth. You don't chase, you magnetize. Because you're no longer a doormat, you are the gateway to a higher standard. Only those ready to meet you on your terms step through. Here's the twist. Nobody talks about the moment you stop dimming your light. The world stops asking for your permission to exist. Guard it fiercely. It's okay to say no, to step back, to set boundaries, even with those you love. Second, learn to spot emotional parasites. You become a force not because you fight harder, but because you refuse to shrink. This is the power of individuation. It's not about fitting in. It's about standing out as your most authentic whole self. And that's when real love arrives. Not the kind that leeches off your energy, but the kind that celebrates your boundaries, your strength, your light. Those who stay because they see you fully, unapologetically, and fiercely alive. So, stop apologizing for your limits. Start honoring your soul. Because in that fierce self-respect lies your freedom and your true power. Stop chasing love, because the moment you stop begging for it, love finds you. Not the kind that drains you, confuses you, or leaves you hollow, but the kind that sees you, truly sees you, not for what you give, but simply for who you are. Carl Jung believed that as we become more whole, we stop scrambling for outside approval. Wholeness isn't about being perfect, it's about integration. It means reclaiming every piece of yourself you once surrendered to others. Before your energy shouted availability, you wore your empathy like an open invitation. Anyone could come in, take what they wanted, and leave you with scraps. But now your energy hums a different tune. It says, I know my worth. I know when to give and when to say no. I don't fear solitude, because I'm no longer afraid of who I am. This shift, it's powerful. It pushes away the takers. They feel your boundary, your groundedness, your clarity, and it unsettles them. When they reach out, silence. They crave your calm when their world unravels. They want your quiet presence when chaos swarms their mind. Those who show up only when they need to be filled, who vanish when it's their turn to give. Third, cultivate solitude. You can't be controlled, so they move on. But here's the magic. This same energy draws in respect. The people who once overlooked you now notice your presence before you speak. Not because you shout louder, but because you stand firmer. You become magnetic, not through effort, but through authenticity. Real love, the kind that feeds your soul, shows up only when false attachments fall away. When you stop pretending, stop overextending, stop shrinking yourself to fit others' expectations, and instead stand fully as your integrated self. That's when someone sees you and doesn't blink, not because they need you to fix them, but because they are healing too. Love isn't about giving away your energy, it's about guarding it fiercely, and observing who still steps into your light. You were never too much, too intense, too emotional, or too deep. You were never the problem. They were the ones too empty to hold you, too distracted to notice your glow, too broken to love without draining. Your energy wasn't a burden, it was a gift, a warmth people clung to because they hadn't built their own fire. But that doesn't mean you deserve to be used, seen as a well to draw from instead of a whole person standing tall. Jung taught that true power comes from within, not from how much you give away, but from how fiercely you reclaim yourself. So if you've ever felt invisible, discarded, or misunderstood, consider this your wake-up call. Stop handing out pieces of your soul like they're free samples. Not isolation, but sacred space to refill your well. Sit with your thoughts. Feel your emotions without guilt. This is where your true power lives. Pull your light back from those who only stand in your sun, and save it for the ones who can meet you in the dark. Because the right people, they won't just need your energy, they'll honor it. If this strikes a chord, take a deep breath and claim your power back. And if you're ready to go deeper, subscribe to Cyphos, where your mind isn't judged but understood. Your energy is sacred. Protect it. The time is now. Fourth, embrace your shadow. The parts you hide, reject, or feel ashamed of. They are not your weakness. They are the depth that makes your light real. Remember, you're not here to fix others. You're here to honor yourself. The world may not always understand your intensity. But that intensity, it's your gift, your compass, your signal flare. If you've ever felt invisible in a crowded room, only to shine brighter than anyone else, this is your reminder. You're not alone. So, if this resonates, if it stirs something raw and true, subscribe to Cyphos. This channel sees through the masks. It speaks to the parts others ignore. Because here, you don't have to hide your light. You learn to protect it, to nurture it, to let it blaze. You were never meant to dim. You were meant to shine fiercely, unapologetically. And that's the greatest love story of all. This isn't love. It isn't friendship. It isn't connection. It's consumption. Today, we're unraveling Carl Jung's profound insights into psychic energy, why some people can't get enough of your presence, how emotional vampires sneak in disguised as friends or lovers, and most importantly, how to take back your power before you break. Because here's the truth, they may not love you. They only love how you heal their wounds. And if you don't learn to guard your energy, you'll spend your life patching others up while you quietly fall apart. They lean on your strength until it's inconvenient, then suddenly, you're overwhelming. So you start to doubt yourself. Maybe you are too emotional. Some people don't check in on you until they need a lifeline. They only call when their world crashes down. They unload, vent, cry, bleed out their pain, and then disappear. No gratitude, no "how are you?" just silence, until the next emergency. Jung didn't call them energy vampires, but he understood them deeply. He named it psychic projection, the unconscious act of dumping your inner chaos onto someone else, expecting them to carry what you refuse to face. See, Jung believed everyone carries a shadow, a dark hidden side filled with repressed fears, unresolved pain, and unmet needs. Instead of owning it, many outsource the darkness. They shove their shadows onto others. And who do they latch onto? The empathetic, the sensitive, the ones who listen with their whole being. Because you're safe. But here's the catch. They don't see you as a person. You become a sponge for their suffering. Over time, the signs creep in, subtle but undeniable. You feel drained after every conversation. You carry their pain like your own. Setting boundaries triggers guilt trips. You wonder, am I selfish for needing space? This isn't friendship, it's emotional leeching. But it doesn't start like that. At first, they worship you. They call you wise, thoughtful, the best listener they've ever met. They unload trauma early, making you feel important, needed, essential. But the balance shifts. They stop asking about you. Your feelings get dismissed or ignored, wanting space. Suddenly, you're selfish or cold. Maybe you expect too much. Maybe the problem isn't them, it's you. But beneath all that noise, you feel the truth simmering. You're not clingy. You're loyal. Pull away? Brace yourself for manipulation and guilt. Jung called this classic shadow projection. They're not in love with you. They're in love with the way you make them feel. Seen, grounded, healed. But it's never lasting. Because they're not healing themselves. They're outsourcing their inner work. Instead of igniting their own light, they steal yours. When you finally stop giving, the accusations fly. You've changed, you're distant. They find a new source to drain, and the cycle spins again. This isn't always malicious. Most times, it's unconscious. But it's dangerous all the same. It leaves people like you emotionally bankrupt, confused, questioning your worth. Jung believed true connection only happens when two people face their shadows, when they do the hard inner work. But energy vampires, they avoid that path at all costs. Instead, they cling to others' strength and never build their own. So what do? First, recognize the pattern. Awareness is your first defense. Second, set boundaries clear, firm, unapologetic boundaries. It's okay to say no. It's okay to protect your energy. Third, practice radical self-care. Recharge your psychic batteries. Spend time with yourself, away from the chaos. Fourth, nurture relationships that respect your limits and reciprocate your care. Remember, your energy is sacred. You don't owe anyone your emotional labor. If this video hits home, if you've ever felt sucked dry by someone who needed you but never gave back, subscribe to Cyphos. You're not needy, you're grounded. You don't chase attention, you long for real connection. Then why does love always drain you dry? Because in a world obsessed with surfaces, true depth scares people. This channel is for the warriors who protect their light, who refuse to be drained, who choose healing over exhaustion. Because you weren't born to be a victim. You were born to be a guardian of your own soul. And that starts with saying no to emotional parasites and yes to your own power. Surround themselves with mirrors reflecting their light, so they never have to look inside. They avoid the messy inner work, preferring to siphon energy from those already shining brightly. You're not too intense. You're simply vibrating on a frequency they haven't reached yet. And instead of elevating themselves, they pull others down. But here's the power you didn't know you had. Once you see this cycle, you can break it. You can stop mistaking emotional exhaustion for love. You can stop pouring yourself into people who refuse to heal their own wounds. You can say no firmly, guiltlessly. You can guard your energy unapologetically, because your light isn't cheap. It's not your responsibility to burn yourself out just to keep someone else warm. And yet, you keep drawing the same crowd, the takers, the drainers, the ones who disappear without a word, only to reappear when they want something. Maybe you've asked yourself, why do I always get stuck in one-sided relationships? You're empathetic, emotionally intelligent, a good listener. You offer kindness and understanding, even when it hurts. So why do you attract emotional parasites? Carl Jung said it best, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. They want your light, but reject the shadows that give it shape. And that question starts to haunt you in the quiet moments. Am I just hard to love? But what if you're not broken? What if, like Carl Jung taught us, the problem isn't your energy, it's the mirror? This isn't fate, it's a pattern that's been running quietly beneath your surface for years. Let's rewind. As a child, your worth was tied to what you did, not who you were. Maybe a parent was distant, unavailable, or emotionally unpredictable. So you learned to tune into moods like a radar. You mastered reading the room, diffusing tension, shrinking yourself to keep the peace. You became the fixer, the mediator, the emotional sponge. You gave love, hoping it would come back. You listened, wishing someone would ask how you felt. You poured out your energy, waiting for it to be refilled, but it never was. Slowly your nervous system rewired itself, confusing overgiving with safety. To be loved, you had to earn it. To be seen, you had to disappear. That's how unconscious patterns are born. Now, even with all your growth and self-awareness, those old scripts still play in the background. You're drawn to people who need you, but overlook those who truly see you. Because being needed feels familiar even when it leaves you drained. Here's the catch. If you keep giving from a place of emptiness, you'll attract people who feed on that void. Not because you're weak, but because you were never taught that love doesn't demand sacrifice. Jung believed what we suppress in ourselves ends up controlling us. If you learn to silence your needs, your voice, your anger, you'll unconsciously attract those who exploit your silence. You become the healer who never receives healing. The lover who never gets loved back, the giver who is always empty. And worst of all, you forget what it means to be whole. You reflect what others are afraid to face, their shame, their fears, their hollow spaces. Instead of confronting it, they take from you until you're empty. But it doesn't have to be this way. You can reclaim your energy by recognizing these shadows, by honoring your needs as sacred, not selfish. By embracing your anger as a signal, not a flaw. By setting boundaries that protect your soul, instead of guilt tripping you. True connection isn't about endlessly giving, it's about two whole people choosing to share their light, not drain it. So if you've been caught in this exhausting loop, take a breath. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are ready to rewrite the story, to stop pouring into empty vessels, and start filling your own well. Because real love and real friendship don't cost your soul, they restore it. Blame yourself. You're not broken. You're caught in a cycle your inner child confuses with love, and it's anything but that. Real love doesn't sap your energy. It doesn't keep tally. It doesn't disappear the moment you ask for a little in return. So how do you break the chain? Start by shining a light on what's hidden. Become aware of the pattern. Who do you find yourself drawn to? What do you accept that quietly drains your spirit? When did you first believe love was something to be earned? Then, make a choice. Stop proving your worth through endless giving. Begin to receive without shame, without guilt. Set boundaries, not as barriers, but as sacred filters that protect your soul. Because here's the truth. You don't need to bleed to be seen. You don't need to shrink to feel safe. This isn't just a feeling, it's a dynamic, a dance between light and shadow, and understanding it can change everything. You don't need to empty yourself to be loved. You simply need to stop attracting from a place of scarcity and start embodying the love you once missed. And when you do, everything shifts. Maybe you've noticed it, how you're always there for everyone. You check in. You remember the little things. You hold space for their breakdowns, calm their storms, help them rise again. Yet somehow no one really sees you. Not your fears, not your pain, not your true essence. They love what you do, but not who you are. Carl Jung gave this a name, the persona. It's the mask we wear to fit in, to be accepted. The role we slip into when we feel like we have to earn our place. The helper, the fixer, the rock. But this mask comes at a cost. The longer you wear it, the more invisible your authentic self becomes, even to you. You get praised for your kindness, but no one asks if you need kindness back. You're loved for your calm, but no one checks on the storm raging inside. You're valued for your strength, but your quiet exhaustion goes unnoticed, and slowly this wears you down. You start to feel like a tool, useful but not cherished. Valuable but not truly valued. People remember you when they need you, but when you need them, silence. It's a loneliness that sinks deep, the kind you can't quite explain. Because on the outside, you look fine. You smile, you nod, you say, "I'm okay." But inside, you're screaming to be seen. Carl Jung didn't just study the mind, he studied the invisible, the currents beneath what we say, the way someone's presence shifts a room. Not for what you do, but for who you are. Here's the irony. Most people don't even realize they're doing it. They're so used to you being the strong one. They don't think to ask if you're struggling. They find comfort in your presence and forget you need to be held too. It's not that they don't care. It's that your persona, the very mask Jung described, has done its job too well. You've convinced the world you're okay. You've hidden the parts that bleed. You've silenced the voice that asks for help. But the truth is, that voice matters, because beneath the mask is the real you, the one who deserves to be seen, heard, loved, not for your usefulness or your strength, but simply for being you. Breaking free means letting go of the need to perform. It means allowing yourself to be vulnerable. It means saying, "I matter." You don't have to carry everyone else's pain at the cost of your own. You don't have to fix what others refuse to face. Your energy is precious, your light is sacred. Protect it, honor it, because real connection, real love happens when two people show up as their whole selves. When they don't hide behind masks, but meet in honest, raw humanity. So if you're tired of giving without receiving, if you feel invisible beneath the weight of expectations, remember this: you're not broken. You're simply ready to stop surviving and start thriving. You're ready to be loved, not for what you do, but for who you truly are.